The recording starts with a clatter that still makes my stomach drop every time I watch it. A pair of aluminum crutches skidding across sun-baked concrete, the metallic scrape echoing off garage doors. My wife Eliza reaches for them with that careful determination I've come to recognize, and she stumbles. That's when HOA President Rhonda Styles steps into the frame, her designer sandals clicking against the pavement. She says rules are rules in that sing-songy voice of hers, the one she uses when she thinks she's being reasonable. Then she does it. She gives a petty little kick to Eliza's shin like she's testing a tire for air pressure. 3 doors open simultaneously on Birch Ridge Lane. My phone is already dialing 911 with shaking hands, while our doorbell camera blinks red like it's taking attendance at the worst neighborhood meeting ever held. I'm Nolan Graves. I design quiet things for a living. Library websites that whisper instead of shout, minimalist to-do apps that don't nag, silent ceiling fans that move air without announcing it. We moved to Birch Ridge Heights 6 months ago because the glossy flyer promised serenity and mountain views, not a petty tyrant in capri pants with a laminated copy of the bylaws. Eliza's multiple sclerosis means mobility is chess, not checkers. Every movement requires strategy. The crutches are her rooks, essential pieces she can't play without. I keep the yard tidy, the grill covered, and my opinions private. That's the suburban contract, right? Enter Rhonda Styles. HOA Karen with a spray tan aura that glows orange in direct sunlight and a voice calibrated to travel through drywall, stucco, and apparently all common sense. She enforces bylaws the way toddlers enforce bedtime. Loudly, arbitrarily, and with complete conviction that she's the only one who understands the rules. The crusade began innocently enough. Eliza painted our little front step ramp a cheerful robin's egg blue because, in her words, if you're going to need a ramp, it might as well make you smile. Within 48 hours, Rhonda posted a violation notice to our door using what appeared to be an entire roll of packing tape. Unapproved aesthetic modifications, it declared in bold red text. $250 fine for encroachment of medical devices into a sightline. I read it 3 times. Medical devices into a sightline. Like Eliza's crutches were somehow photobombing the neighborhood's collective view. That's when the wellness checks started. Wellness checks that looked suspiciously like trespassing. Rhonda would peek over our fence with binoculars she claimed were for birding, though we live nowhere near any interesting bird habitats unless you count the aggressive crows that steal fries from the strip mall dumpster. She told neighbors at the mailboxes that Eliza was faking it for sympathy parking. She actually said that. Out loud. To people who had watched Eliza navigate stairs with the concentration of a bomb defusal expert. Then came the note. Left tucked under our windshield wiper in Rhonda's distinctive looping handwriting. If you can garden, you can walk. Eliza had been deadheading roses from her mobility scooter, her favorite Saturday morning ritual. Apparently, that was proof of fraud in Rhonda's world. The fines multiplied like rabbits for phantom crimes we didn't commit. Excessive wind chimes, though we owned exactly 1 small copper chime Eliza's mom gave us. Non-conforming herb pots, despite the fact that the bylaws specifically allowed container gardens. Visible therapeutic equipment, which I can only assume meant Eliza's crutches existing where Rhonda could see them. Rhonda measured our doormat with a tape measure that squeaked like judgment incarnate, declaring it 0.3 inches over the maximum allowable thickness. I didn't even know doormats had thickness regulations. We appealed every single fine through the proper channels. Rhonda denied each appeal by return text, each message punctuated with 6 exclamation points like she was celebrating. Here's what you need to know about Eliza. She doesn't do helpless. She doesn't do victim. She does spreadsheets with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Before MS changed her path, she was a forensic accountant who once found $37,000 hidden in a landscaping company's mulch invoices. So when Rhonda's harassment crossed from annoying into absurd, Eliza did what she does best. She requested the HOA's annual financials per Section 7.4 of the bylaws that Rhonda loved to quote. Rhonda's response arrived as a PDF that looked like a child's restaurant menu. 3 boxes labeled income, expenses, and other. A clip art pie chart colored in crayon green and labeled good. No line items. No dates. No vendor information. Just good. Eliza smiled that smile that means someone's about to have a very bad day. She filed an open records request with the management company. Official channels. Certified mail. The works. And oops, in addition to the financial summary, she accidentally received the actual bank statements. All of them. 2 years' worth. The numbers didn't just sing. They performed a full opera. Landscaping bills to a company called Styles Landscaping Services, a business Rhonda co-owned with her brother. $1,500 monthly for mowing that our neighbor Jerry did for free with his rider mower because he liked the exercise. ATM withdrawals labeled petty cash every single Friday at 4:30 p.m. at the wine bar on Morrison Street. $60. Every week. Like clockwork. And the crown jewel. A municipal accessibility grant for $12,000. Cashed. Deposited. Never spent on ramps or sidewalks or the community pool lift the grant specifically funded. The money just evaporated into general funds and then into Rhonda's personal account in tidy monthly transfers labeled administrative consulting fees. Eliza presented her findings at the next HOA meeting in the community center that smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. She handed out printed copies. Color-coded. Highlighted. With sticky tabs marking each irregularity. You could hear Rhonda's breathing change from across the room. Her face went from spray-tan bronze to something closer to tomato red. The room went silent except for the sound of pages turning and people beginning to understand they'd been robbed by someone who measured their doormats. Rhonda stood up so fast her chair screeched. She said this was defamation, that Eliza had no right to private HOA business, that she'd be hearing from lawyers. Then she stormed out. We thought that was the end of it. We were so wrong. 2 days later, Rhonda showed up on our porch at 7:45 in the morning. I was inside making coffee when I heard her voice through the window, sharp and accusatory. Eliza had just stepped outside to water the herb pots, the non-conforming ones, leaning on her crutches. Rhonda was yelling about theft of proprietary information, about slander, about how Eliza had no right to weaponize private documents. Her voice had that edge that meant she was past reason and into pure rage. Eliza stayed calm. She told Rhonda the documents were public record per state law and HOA bylaws. She suggested Rhonda consult with a lawyer if she had questions about fiduciary responsibility. That's when Rhonda snapped. She reached out and grabbed Eliza's crutches. Just grabbed them like they were evidence of a crime. Called them proof of fraud. Eliza stumbled, trying to keep her balance, and that's when Rhonda kicked her. Not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough. A petty little kick to the shin that said I can hurt you and get away with it. The motion sensor porch light blazed on like a stage spotlight. Our doorbell camera caught everything in high-definition video. 3 neighbors' doors opened. Mrs. Chen from next door gasped loud enough to echo. And I was already running for the door with my phone dialing 911. The sheriff arrived first, lights flashing but no siren in deference to the early hour. Then came the city ADA compliance officer, a woman named Patricia who looked like she could bench press bureaucracy. Finally, a detective showed up in an unmarked sedan, a guy named Morrison who said wire fraud the way a sommelier says notes of oak and leather. Appreciatively. Like he'd been waiting his whole career to say it in a context this clear-cut. We turned over the doorbell footage. Rhonda grabbing the crutches. The stumble. The kick. The look on Rhonda's face that said she thought she was entitled to do this. We turned over Eliza's spreadsheets and the bank statements. Morrison's eyebrows went up with each page. The management company, desperate to distance themselves from the impending disaster, emailed an apology so long it needed chapters and a table of contents. They attached every invoice Rhonda had ever signed, each one with her distinctive looping signature and a heart over the I in Styles. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that night. They froze Rhonda's authority, suspended her access to accounts, called for an immediate vote of no confidence. Neighbors who once whispered maybe Nolan's grass is too long now whispered is that embezzlement in the same hushed tones usually reserved for announcing someone's divorce. Rhonda tried the classic HOA defense. She showed up to the meeting in a blazer that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he charged by the syllable. She said this was harassment against her leadership, that she was being targeted for enforcing standards, that Eliza's accusations were nothing but a vendetta from someone who couldn't follow simple rules. Her voice shook with manufactured indignation. The deputy waiting outside tried the classic law enforcement reply. He waited until she left the building, then approached with handcuffs ready and her rights memorized. Court day arrived 3 months later and felt like a neighborhood block party with a dress code and metal detectors. Half of Birch Ridge Lane showed up in business casual, filling the gallery like this was their personal season finale. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Chen who wore sensible heels and had the tired eyes of someone who'd seen every variety of suburban crime. She queued up our porch cam footage on the courtroom monitor. The room collectively exhaled at the moment Rhonda snatched the crutches, that casual cruelty captured in crystal-clear 1080p resolution. You could see everything. The grab. Eliza's face as she tried to stay upright. The kick. Rhonda's expression of absolute certainty that she was in the right. Chin let it play twice. The second time, someone in the gallery whispered "Oh my God" loud enough for the judge to hear. Then came Eliza's forensic spreadsheet, projected on the screen in all its color-coded glory. Every petty cash withdrawal highlighted in HOA green. Every suspicious invoice marked with a digital sticky note. The accessibility grants paper trail, or rather the complete absence of one, shown in stark red. Chen walked the jury through it like a tour guide showing off a particularly elaborate scam. Here's where $12,000 in grant money entered the HOA account. Here's where it exited in monthly chunks labeled administrative consulting fees. Here's Rhonda's personal account receiving those exact amounts. Here's the pool lift that was never installed, the ramps that were never built, the curb cuts that were never poured. And here, this is my personal favorite, Chen said with a slight smile. Here's a photo of Rhonda's kitchen renovation completed 1 month after the grant money disappeared. Coastal farmhouse style. Shiplap and everything. Rhonda's defense attorney, a man who looked like he regretted his career choices, argued that the HOA finances were complicated, that his client had made bookkeeping errors, that the assault charge was overblown because Eliza wasn't seriously injured. He said the kick was barely a tap. He actually said tap. Like that made it better. The jury looked at him the way you look at someone trying to sell you a obviously broken used car. Chen's rebuttal was surgical. She noted that bookkeeping errors don't typically involve creating shell companies owned by relatives. That assault doesn't require serious injury to be criminal. That grabbing a disabled woman's mobility aids and kicking her wasn't a tap, it was targeted cruelty captured on video. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes, probably only that long because they stopped for lunch. The judge found Rhonda guilty on all counts. Misdemeanor assault, felony fraud, theft by conversion, falsifying records. Each word landed like a gavel strike. The restitution amount made people gasp. $47,000 to the HOA, representing all fraudulent charges and misappropriated funds, plus interest. $12,000 to the accessibility fund to actually install the improvements she'd stolen. 18 months of probation with an ankle bracelet that would monitor her movements like she'd monitored everyone's doormat thickness. A permanent ban from serving in any fiduciary role in any homeowners association, condominium board, or community organization. The judge really emphasized any, like he wanted to make sure Rhonda couldn't just move and start fresh somewhere else. For community service, the court picked irony as its weapon. 200 hours installing ADA-compliant ramps at public buildings under the supervision of the very compliance office that had investigated her. Plus a mandatory 6-week empathy course taught by a physical therapist named B who, according to the prosecutor's recommendation, had once worked with disabled veterans and had exactly zero tolerance for anyone who thought mobility aids were optional accessories. Rhonda's face went from spray-tan bronze to paper white as the judge read each sentence. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Her hands gripped the defense table hard enough that her knuckles went bloodless. For the first time in the 3 years we'd known her, the first time since she'd moved to Birch Ridge Heights and declared herself the neighborhood's moral authority, Rhonda Styles had absolutely nothing to say. She just stood there, swaying slightly, while the bailiff approached to discuss her surrender date and the deputy waited to escort her out through a side door away from the cameras that had gathered outside. The gallery stayed silent until she left. Then someone started clapping.